it's really strange to see all these photos coming out of me as an Icelandic Viking warrior.
What has been your like the most fun stunt that you've done so far?
I did a burn, full body burn. That was fun because it was meant to be a modest burn, and it turned out to be quite a big one.
What was your thoughts initially on how this character is actually going to be?
I think originally he was a lot more evil in my head, a lot more.
Is there something that you know on what Thorgestr really saw in the forest?
That has always been a question mark, but it's deliberately designed to start planting the seed of doubt in the player's mind.
Hellblade 2 was such a game that was advertised in such a grand way, and everybody was so excited. And when the game released, a lot of people had a really good time. What are your thoughts on the release in the game? I know you worked on this game for quite a bit, and you did so much motion capture. How are your thoughts right now?
Honestly, I'm personally taken aback. I've never been in this position before. This is the first kind of lead role in anything. I come from more of a stunt background. There is an interesting way that I got onto this project was literally through being part of the stunt team. And for me, like the community response, obviously the reviews and all of that are just mind-blowing, and the fact that some people are enjoying it as much as to give it like 5 stars is just incredible, and an ode to the work that Ninja Theory have put in, because they are absolute masterminds over there. But the fan response as well, and how people have literally been reaching out to me to tell me how much my character got through to them, and how much my performance meant to them, is just insanely humbling.
Yeah.
So I'm still kind of high on the wave of that, if you know what I mean. It's really been like the first time ever that sort of happened, and just the fact that people feel like they need to reach out, even yourself reaching out to ask for this conversation in this podcast, is just like, it's insane. It's insane.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I love your character, so cool. And just as you mentioned, like a lot of people felt that connection with Thorgestr, and I did too. And there's a lot of things, because I initially thought, okay, he's the villain. He's that guy. He's going to be the villain throughout the game. And then there's this arc towards the end, and the journey with Senua, which is very cool. And you said you saw the reviews and saw people's opinions and all that stuff. Are you someone who like, or how much time did you spend on like kind of reading and seeing what people are thinking about this game online?
I don't know. It's at this point I'm not obsessive over it, but it was definitely something that I went and had a good look at, especially like the week of the game's release, simply just because of like sort of how new this territory was to me. And, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinions, and it's really interesting to read both the good and the bad, and to see, you know, whether there were people who didn't quite connect with particularly my character, because obviously I couldn't do anything about any of the other gripes that they had. But I'm always one of them people who I find it really hard to watch my own work without just hating it. Mm-hmm. So to see such a wealth of feedback directed at me particularly was actually really rewarding. All of it, the good and the bad. It's been I think that answers your question. I'm sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent.
That completely answers my question. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I know, like, especially you being in a game which is like, we have that lead character as well. It's hard to go through these reviews because there's going to be positives, there's going to be negatives, and people are going to be talking and bouncing off on all these things. So it can be hard to go by and see, because, you know, as human beings, we tend to go towards a little bit on the negative side and be like, yeah, I'm going to see that first. And all the 10 positive stuff, I'm going to see that later. That one negative stuff, stick to that. Yeah, so I totally understand that. But I feel like there's a lot of people who really connect with the game overall, the character, the story, the visuals, all of it. And I really like the look of your character too. Your character was menacing. Again, I feel like throughout the entire game, I always felt like that character is still menacing, even though he has that positive wave going on later on, like he is going to that positive side of things. I still felt like, oh, that character has, like, he's been through a lot of things. What has your like kind of thoughts on how the character is, how it looks, and the wardrobe and all that stuff?
Honestly, it's kind of a dream character for me.
Oh,
It's not just all evil and moody, but it is maybe rooted in that. That
mm,
seems to be
yeah,
somewhere where I sit quite comfortably. But I loved the progression when I first got the script, and first learned of this character's progression and how he went from enemy to friend. Um, it was like everything that an actor sort of dreams of. I've
yeah,
always wanted to do such an integral sort of journey in of the character itself. Um, and Lara, the director and writer, she's so nuanced with what she chooses to put in the script, but it's all there for a reason. Like everything she chooses for a specific reason, and finding all of those extra little nuances about the character through what she'd written in the script or how Thorgestr may react in a certain situation. That was I loved doing that. I loved it. And trying to, as you say, trying to find the sort of keep the integral character as this menacing warrior who could at any time potentially turn his back on
yeah.
Senua and the rest of them, but also find those delicate moments where, for example, he's checking up on her, making sure she's all right, and things like that, where you sort of see that softer side of him trying to eke out underneath.
Yeah.
So yeah, I loved the challenge. I absolutely loved the challenge. It was so much fun.
That's awesome. Like, cause likewise, like, but for someone like and everybody, I saw a lot of people posting about it, and I saw a lot of screenshots. Like, there's photo modes and people who take these wonderful screenshots. You shared a few on your Instagram as well. There's like incredible looking screenshot. I'm like, I tried taking some, and I thought like these are good, and then I saw the ones that people posted online. I was like, okay, the mine are nowhere good as those guys. But yeah, those people like made Thorgestr look even classier, even better, even stronger. It was so cool to see all those photos.
Yeah, again, kind of blown away because they did full body scans. We were
Yeah.
flown out to Serbia to have our entire body scanned by a company called Three Lateral. So it's really strange to see all these photos coming out of me as an Icelandic Viking warrior. It's cool, but it's very strange. And all of these things that they've caught in situ of like Thorgestr smiling or something. They're just honestly, the fan response is it's overwhelming. It's amazing. Honestly, I've got so much respect for everybody who's taken the time to photograph me in a video game.
Yeah, that it's amazing, and that's I can see the love pouring through that. And you mentioned earlier that this was not usually you have worked in games before, but this was not. This is the first game where you kind of like in a lead role, but you've done a lot of stunt performing. You've done a lot of motion capture in a lot of different
Yes.
games. You've done Warhammer. I know you were in a trailer for that Warhammer, Lords of the Fallen, Fort Solis, which you did the performance for both Troy and both the characters. I'm forgetting the other name. I'm so sorry, but
Oh, Roger
Roger. Oh
Clark.
my
Yeah.
God, people are gonna kill me. The Quarry as well. There's so many games that have done. So, what drew you into doing stunt work? Even though you're also in acting, but you're also doing a lot of stunts.
Yeah, I was always like kind of it's a long story. Unfortunately, I was always kind of like a drama-y kid. I always was really drawn towards like performance classes and used to do like all of the Amdram kind of things. And it was a kind of a keen focus for me all the way throughout my education. And eventually I got to drama school, which was, an achievement in of itself. And then I was on a physical theatre course at East 15 acting school. And I had some friends who were doing, at the time, it was called BA Acting and Stage Combat, but I think it's now called BA Acting and Fight Performance. And they were doing like weapons training and working with steel weaponry for stage combat purposes. And I loved the physical theatre course. It was great, but I was looking across at them and I was like, oh no, I think that's what I wanted to do. So I was the fool who then re-auditioned and started university again.
Oh wow.
And I did fortunately got on, and then so I did the acting and stage combat course. And you receive all the weapons training to be proficient at fighting for stage. From that, one of my teachers, he had an assistant. So my teacher was Gordon Kemp, who now runs the course, and his assistant was Nathaniel Martin, who was learning to be a tutor with the BASSC or the BADC. I forget which one because he became both. And Nathaniel obviously got to know our class. And upon us graduating, he then started picking up small coordination jobs out in Wales on like low budget films. And because he knew of us, he started to ask us to come over and do some fights on his sets. So we started out like really bare bones basic. We almost didn't really know what we were doing and on these low budget shoots. And it's just kind of snowballed from there. Nathaniel picked up a lot more traction and obviously established himself as a stunt coordinator, and then established Lucky 13 Action as a company. He was working incredibly closely with another stunt coordinator called Matt Mackay as well, and they kind of taught me a lot of what I knew about the stunt world, but also kind of carried me through and kept asking me to come and work for them, and kept like valuing the work that I was putting out. And one thing led to another, and he started getting through jobs that were on video games, and that's always something I've had a massive passion for. And yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy ride ever since then, to be quite honest with you.
Wow, that's so cool. Especially you knowing that okay, acting is something, and then you finding and that stunts and doing action and pieces like that would be something is more interesting, and going in that direction is also pretty cool. And you've done some really incredible work. I really loved that the trailer that was for Warhammer. I really loved that. It was really cool. And all the work that you've done in all these games for as a stunt performer, as a motion capture artist, it's really wonderful. And you know, it's one of those things where even recently, like with the movie like Fall Guy that came out, which was focused on stunt performers and how it is for movies, and not many people know about the stunt guys who do these stunts. It's the same for games as well. Obviously, not a lot of people know about people who are doing stunts in games, or all these action set pieces the actors sometimes do, sometimes don't. And so it's really cool that Fall Guy is some ways also kind of shining the light on the stunt people who are working in stunts. What has been your thought? I don't know if you have seen the movie or not, but like, what has been your kind of like thought on Fall Guy, kind of like bringing the light on the stunt performers?
Personally, and this is only an incredibly personal opinion, I haven't actually seen the film yet, but it is on my to-watch list. Life has just been a bit crazy with me moving house and everything, so I haven't really had the time. But the reception that it has given and sort of the light that it shed on the stunt community, I think is amazing, to be honest. It is kind of a stuntman's job to not be noticed, if you know what I mean. It's always kind of like you're either doubling for somebody who you are pretending to be in that moment, or you are just doing some deep background work and they don't necessarily want to focus in on your face, or if they want to reuse you later on in the project, always face away from camera. And so I feel like everyone always knew it was there, right? Everyone's always known about like Buster Keaton and people like that, always pushing the boundary when it first started to become an art form.
Yeah.
But I think because the art form is to be subtle with it, it gets overlooked, and not necessarily deliberately, quite a lot. And I think it's just an amazing movement to shed light on these people who are literally putting life and limb on the line occasionally to bring entertainment to people's screens. And by no means am I like at the top of that level. I'm nowhere near the best stunt performers out there are, just absolutely insane people. And it's insane to me that we don't necessarily hear about them or know who they are, because they are doing some fantastic stuff.
That's true. Yeah, they are doing some fantastic stuff. And while in games it's not as crazy as a car roll, and like in a movie it's not as crazy as that, but there's definitely a lot of things that happens in games with action stuff which when the player, whoever is playing it, gets to see that scene, it looks real. It looks like it is well done. It's well made. It just looks authentic. And
Yeah.
you have done all of that in all these games as well. That and it's pretty cool, especially like stuff like the quarry, which I know that you kind of, I think you did the monster parts as well, which is really cool because I played the quarry, and it's, you know, you have to make it look authentic as a monster, which, you know, how do you do that? But like, it's pretty cool to see that, because in a video game, and there's always these kind of limitations and different stuff. So I like stunts more now that I've known how it works and how everything is has been done. So it's pretty cool to see you doing all that over the years.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think especially in games, I think there's quite and a lot of games companies are now starting to use stunt teams across the board. And I think there's quite a stark difference when you see action that has that living nuance that motion capture brings. And obviously, in order to be able to do that for some high octane stunt, you need to get yourselves stunt teams and stunt performers in to do it safely. And to have every box ticked in that regard. But I personally, like, don't get me wrong, the animators who key animate all of their games, they're amazing. And the work that they put in and the hours that they slave into key animating every single frame is not to be scoffed at. But for me, to see that living, breathing, especially with a human character or a threat to a human character, to see that just those nuances of life, and how a human body really does ricochet off a wall is a little bit more immersive, if you know what I mean.
That's true. It is a bit more immersive. And with all the stunts that you've done in games, you've done also some for movies, I believe. What has been your like kind of like the most challenging or like the most fun stunt that you've done so far?
Ooh, that's a really hard one, actually.
I can imagine.
I did a burn, a full body burn on a non-equity, low budget film that's actually not been released yet. It's on its way out. It's called The Experiment. And not to give too much away, I was a creature covered from head to toe in like this furry costume. And it was made of pure wool because with a burn, if you put any synthetics into the fabric, there's a chance that they could melt onto the performer. So they try and keep all of the fabrics natural, so they'll burn away rather than melting onto you. But that was fun because I don't think I was quite expecting how much wool burns. And it was meant to be a modest burn, and it turned out to be quite a big one. I was completely safe. The stunt coordinator made sure that everything was safe, and it all went completely to plan. But I think it was quite fun to be just in the middle of an absolute inferno. And then afterwards, the response that you get from people is genuinely quite lovely and humbling when they're all a little bit in awe because you just set yourself on fire in front of them. So that was quite fun.
Wow. Yeah. Like a lot of different stunts that I see. I'm like, when I see the behind the scenes videos of like those scenes, and like, oh my God, how these guys are doing it. And the burning full body burn has always been like, oh my God, that's so crazy that they do that. And sometimes in some of the movies where they have to do that multiple times, I was like, oh my God. So it's just for someone who just can see the things and just can never imagine doing it, and just can see, is like another level of respect on the amount of work, the amount of effort goes into it, and amount of mindset that you have to keep. A set of different kind of mindset, I believe, to go through these scenes and do it in that manner.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like, all respect to the stunt industry. It's the reason, obviously, the coordinators are the masterminds, and they're there with everybody's safety to contend with, even people who aren't necessarily part of the stunt team but are close proximity to the stunt and all of those kinds of things. And then obviously, as you say, the performers as well, who just keep their resolve and put their faith and trust in their coordinators, and daily get some really, really amazing footage that, like you say, it's like, it is awe-inspiring. One of the ones for me was the big multiple burn that I saw on Game of Thrones. Like, I obviously wasn't part of it, but to watch something like that, and you're just like, wow, like that is impressive.
Yeah, that's true. That is definitely impressive. My God, I cannot believe. Going back to Hellblade, and now obviously you've done all these games, and now you're leading one of the leading characters in Hellblade 2. And you've never done this kind of role. So how was it for you to play this character? Because you have so many scenes, you have so many moments from for a player who's playing the game from the very beginning till the very end. You have all these
Hmm.
scenes in front of the main player. So how was it different for you working in this game as compared to the other games?
Um, a very different scope on. So I still, as I say, I began on the stunt team, so it sort of began as normal. We were doing all of the ideation and things for characters, maybe things that weren't quite in the game at the very beginning. And then we moved on to doing all of the combat loco sets for like certain enemies and things. But then as soon as I managed to land the role, it transitioned quite differently. It's a very different scope, and I wouldn't say one is harder than the other per se. I'd say it's just having to you are responsible for a key element of the game, and you feel, especially with a game like this,
Yeah.
if they tried to film it sequentially in chronological order, but obviously if you go back and do pickups of a scene, it's, I think, quite challenging, but at the same time rewarding when you have to revisit the exact mindset of the character in that particular moment to not jeopardize the overall arc,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Usually with a stunt scene, and I say usually because obviously there is, of course, anomalies, but usually it's kind of that one scene and done. Whereas the overarching sort of story to be told with the acting, um, is another challenge in of itself, and also remaining kind of true to the character and the world. I think you have, I wouldn't say more responsibility, but a more obvious responsibility, if you will. And yeah, I loved it. I honestly loved it. I've always loved acting as well. And to just be given this opportunity has been crazy. I'd love to carry on doing more of this in the future.
Oh, I would love to see more of Thorgestr. If in some other way, it would be really cool to see you in other games as well. I know done a fantastic job in here, and it was so cool to see the overall overarching journey of this character from being a bad evil character to a good guy, and that journey was pretty cool. What was your thoughts? I know you mentioned that you saw the script and saw what the journey is going to be. What was your thoughts initially on how this character is actually going to be throughout the game?
I think originally he was a lot more evil in
Mm,
my head, a
okay.
lot more. I think, and Lara, the director, helped me with that in terms of she specifically wanted to soften him at points
Mm,
where she knew that, well, this is obviously the key beat where we want to see a little bit more of the softer side of him. Um, I think, yeah, originally, especially in the early ideation stages when I was still only technically a stunt performer for the game, he was this kind of almost unstoppable force sort of presence, and his first sort of ideations were definitely that he enjoyed being a piece of work, if you know what I mean. He enjoyed it more than I think the final version, where when you stacked up all of the other bits of the script on top of it, and then Lara's vision as well as the director, and then obviously acting alongside like amazing actors and actresses like Mel herself, who obviously plays Senua,
Yeah.
but all of them, Aldis Goodmander, Clive Wood, who plays my dad, like those people, it kind of, you then mold the character to fit the world that you've collectively created.
Mm.
So yeah, I think originally I pegged him as a bit more evil, and I think he was just misguided.
That's a nice way to put it. Yeah, I think I would love to see a little bit more of evil now that you say it. Like I wonder how that more evil side of Thorgestr would be like, because we did see like in the very beginning of the game that
Mm.
evil side, and where he is just doesn't care and he just want to kill Senua, just want to take all these people that he has captured to his father, and do whatever. But it was like that side we did see it, but if there was more evil in him. And there was points where in the game story where I thought, like as you mentioned quite earlier, where you don't know whether when it's gonna turn his back on everybody else. And I thought there would be moments like, oh, he's gonna turn here maybe somewhere and surprise us all, and then it's gonna be another arc or something like that. But that didn't happen. It was like kind of like a very slowly towards the end. Okay, he's now finally uh, been in this journey with Senua, and wants the good things happen to Senua and all that. So I really like that the journey. It was really connected to me in various ways. And one of the cool things about this game is, and that they have shared so much, Ninja Theory has shared so much, is working in this huge volume for all the scenes. How was that? Because there was a massive volume, at least based on from other studios that I've seen who worked on these volumes. How is that? And because you have also different technology that Ninja Theory is also utilizing, how is it working around all those volumes with all these different set pieces?
Yeah, I mean, their volume is absolutely fantastic. It provides everything, and the team that run it as well. I must shout out to them. So Zoe behind the desk, who's the motion capture technician, she's kind of the boss who runs the entire stage. And then you've got Rachel, Kimber, Balash, and Catherine, and I believe that's the majority of the stage team. But they are anything that you'd need, or anything. They can project images down onto the floor so that you can literally walk through the environment before then they take it away to shoot. They've got any kind of amount of like boxes and bits that you can obviously sit on and use as props. The entire top of the rigging in the roof is all like weight tested, so you can rig, like they rigged a big huge ship at one point. So for the very start of the game, where we're on the boat, literally it came out, it was Nathaniel Martin and his riggers with Lucky 13 Action, and they rigged up this huge platform that kind of sat in the middle of the volume. And then as they pulled the ropes, it pulled one corner respectively, and they got it kind of undulating like a ship.
Wow.
So then they put markers on that and literally put that asset into the Vicon system. So on the screen, you could see when they overlaid the skins that we were all on a ship, and that data of just even like the slight muscle shifts and things with the rocking of the ship is all like, because it all happened in situ. And that is definitely like, the volume there is state of the art. It's amazing. One of the things that I found a little bit weird was the HMC cameras, because these ones were green.
Oh.
So you had like a green light shining in your face the whole time. Yeah. And acting past that, it was something I just had to kind of get used to. I'd only ever been in an HMC once before, and it wasn't green. The whole room, because the room's white, the whole room turned pink because you're looking through like a green filter. But no, I cannot hold Ninja Theory up as high as they deserve to be, because they made me feel like really comfortable, really kind of a constructive environment where I could come in and just do the work and just focus on what I had to do, and anything and everything else kind of got dealt with, or they had a plan to work around it, or any of that. It was honestly a treat to work in that volume. It was amazing.
Yeah, the work that Ninja Theory has done with the volume and everything, and how you're mentioning about that scene with the ship was really cool, because as you mentioned, they will be able to capture all the extra details because of how it's set up. So it's very cool to see. And the details, as I said, like earlier, where people are taking photos from the photo mode, the details are right up there. And because of that, and it was very interesting to see the face rig, I think, with the green light, because as whatever behind the scenes footage that we get to see, none of it doesn't have like that green light on the face. It's usually like a white light, I guess, or something, a light kind of shining just to take data for the face, but never green. So that was a very interesting, and I knew that Ninja Theory is gonna do fabulous with the technology and how it's supposed to look like, and it looks phenomenal. It's probably one of the best looking games from Xbox side. Yeah.
So they took us up, right? I know you didn't ask this as a question, but they took us up to one of the floors just to kind of look at, this is what the game's sort of looking like at this stage. And it was about halfway through the cinematic shoot, and we were all just kind of standing around and looking into this monitor, like all of us, mouths to the floor, like, how is it already looking this good? And I literally just look across, and one of the Ninja Theory developers is working incredibly hard on what looks to be a real life gull. And I'm like, wow, that gull looks so good. I wonder when that's going to be in like four shot. Then he zoomed out as I was watching, and that gull is like in the deep background of one shot. And I was like, honestly, the actual detail that they went into, the fact that they respected that detail, and they did not give an inch. And I honestly, their craftsmanship is just, it's insane. It's insane.
True that. Wow, that is insane to see how they still kept those details in, even though it's like far away in the shot. Probably no one is going to see that much, but it's still there with the highest detail possible. Yeah. Insane, absolutely insane. And one of the things that I really love about this game is the action moments. And there's one particular action scene where Thórgestr Senua and another character, I'm forgetting her name so bad, but like you three guys were fighting in this a number of enemies, and it would be the cameras would be switching between, like sometimes it's Senua and Thórgestr would be saving Senua at times. And I remember there's one scene where Thórgestr is fighting, and then he just says to Senua to look out, and he throws his axe to the enemy, which is pretty cool. So how was those fighting segments? Like, how do you guys plan it out, and how much work goes through in scenes like that?
A lot. So again, I hate to just be a broken record, but I have to point toward the amazing stunt team we had at our back, Lucky 13 Action.
Yeah.
And they actually planned those scenes quite extensively. There was a few different variations of what that fight may be floating around. We'd sort of created, because Nathaniel had me in on the day as well, because obviously I was one of the characters, so he wanted me to be able to help and sort of mold the whole thing with him. And yeah, they spent so long just finding the right nuances and the right sort of timings for all of those little beats. And I actually have to put my hands up and say that those action scenes in that specific moment, they are actually, Thórgestr there is being played by Owain Gwyn, who was his stunt double. I actually suffered a very, very, very bad leg injury just before the cinematics. So I did all of Thorgestr's fight from the original, the first fight that you have with him, all of that stuff on the beach. That's all me. But then, unfortunately, my leg injury, I blew out my ACL, I damaged my meniscus, and I tore my quadricep all in one go.
Wow. Jesus.
So I have to give props. Owain Gwyn did the bits for Thórgestr there, but I was involved in the choreography of it. And in fact, they're, again, super respectful. The whole stunt team were like, how would you do this? How does this feel to you? You know, how would Thórgestr build this moment, rather than just going, this is what we've built for it? Which, again, I can only hold my hands up. They always try and serve the character and the story before themselves, which is just a humbling craft.
Wow, that's great. And it's so unfortunate that you had those injuries. My God, all three in one go, which is insane. But
and I did it just before the cinematic shoot, so I did a large portion, and then I got the role, and then I did a little bit more, a little bit of locomotion, and then we broke for Christmas. And then when we came back, I had managed to completely ruin one of my legs, and I was so worried. I thought Ninja Theory were going to be forced to go with a different person for the role, but Lara turned to me and she went, "No, you are our Thórgestr. It doesn't matter. We're going to make this happen." And to all of their credit, like, I was literally on crutches doing my ROMs some days. like doing my range of motion for the motion capture system, and we had to tape one of the crutches so that the metallic part wasn't showing, so the cameras wouldn't pick it up as
Oh,
as
yeah.
anything.
Wow.
But we fought through it, and it was both one of the most professional highs that I'd ever been on, with one of the most physical lows I'd ever experienced. But
Wow.
no, we're getting back to good now. I've had my operation now after the project, so we're we're back on the horse.
Oh, that's great. That's good to know. Oh, that's so cool. Like you have both those things going on at the same time, but you went through, and the whole team went through with that, and I'm so happy that that was decided. With all these scenes, with all these moments, do you have a favorite moment or scene or a memorable moment that you shot as Thorgestr?
Yeah, oh, so many. But honestly, I think if I had to pinpoint just one, I think it would have to be where we meet the Gothi,
Oh,
right at the end of the game.
yeah.
Working with all of the actors, I must say, was an absolute pleasure. There wasn't a single actor on that set that made any of my job difficult. They all helped, like just totally helped steamroller the whole project through. They were all amazing. But having Clive Wood play my father with Melina Jurgens just off to the side of me, and it was all a bit crazy. And I was like, wow. But then the scene itself, I think, was really interesting to explore. I'd explored it with Clive a little bit over a Zoom call because we had a vocal coach called Penny Dyer who helped us with the Icelandic accents. So I explored it slightly with Clive over Zoom beforehand, but when it got into the space, I think, yeah, again, it was one of those moments where his performance and Mel's performance were heavily informed my performance, and it almost felt kind of natural. It just all happened, if you know what I mean. It was, yeah, and I love that moment. I really do. I think that was great.
Yeah. Oh wow. I feel like the last moment of the game was probably the most. I really enjoyed that one. Those moments of the game where there's more drama, there's more tension. I enjoy those moments, and I really love that. And there's, I don't know how that moment was shot, but like there's a moment where I know that the character Thorgestr, obviously there's going to be spoiler warnings, but the character Thorgestr doesn't proceed further, and there's this scene where Senua is like reaching and holding the hands of Thorgestr, and that was a very cool scene cinematically, lighting wise in the game. It looked very cool, where it's just Senua and Thorgestr, and Thorgestr is like telling Senua to just go on, and so that was a very cool moment. I thought that was a great, that moment really, I don't know, somehow got a spark in me. I was like, that's really cool. I love that. We got goosebumps when I was watching that scene. That was probably my favorite scene of all throughout the game.
Interestingly, that was actually shot in exactly the same scene as Thorgestr not proceeding. So that whole section was shot in one go. So we did the moving with Clive, and then obviously that integral moment happens. And then it was me collapsing to the floor, and Mel then came in, and we went straight into it. And I think that was a really useful tool, because all of that, it's so strange when you're in it. I'm sure you understand. It's like when you were a child, or for me at least, it's like when you were a child in the playground and you were playing Jedi, and you knew you were a Jedi. You didn't think you were a Jedi.
Yeah.
It didn't matter that you were on the playground. It didn't matter that you were in school club. You were a Jedi, and that's how I sort of approach motion capture. I fully delve into my imagination, and I kind of just play with my imagination. And to go straight from such a high octane, emotionally driven moment with a lot of like physical convulsion and tension straight into that really helped drive the tone of it with where it was placed, I think, in the game. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, imagination plays a very big role, and it's so cool to see. It's just like for me, I'm like whenever there's a scene that drives imagination, I always wonder like, how do I imagine and how do I do that? But listening from you, it's like so easy to get into that zone and imagine and get in this world, and it shows because then all these scenes that people get to see is more like it's more real, and it's more you're connecting straight away with those scenes, and those moments becomes more incredible because of your performances. So I really like that bit over there, and I think throughout the game was so cool because over the throughout the like course of this game, there's this relationship which formed between Thorgestr and Senua over the time. Obviously, they started off very rough, and they ended up having respect with each other. So, what are your thoughts about like this relationship and this journey between these two characters?
Yeah, I think their relationship is incredibly interesting because of how he almost mirrors her experience with her own father and addressing all of that sort of generational trauma, and how she has the opportunity to kill him at the start, doesn't, and then manages to find connective things in him. I think, and for his side of it as well, going from that pure hatred and literally saying, "I wish we'd thrown you overboard. I'm going to stop you," or all of that kind of stuff. Sorry, I don't know if we can say that word.
You can totally.
But, like all of that sort of the absolute resentment, and then how he starts to recognize her as a warrior and starts to pinpoint parts of her character that he empathizes with as well. And I think they both empathize with each other from different angles. He empathizes with the warrior in her, but she empathizes with the emotional side of him, and that is a really beautiful relationship. I think it's really well written.
I really like that. Slowly and slowly towards the midway towards the game, that there's this, you can see that they're kind of relating to each other in different ways, in different angles, and they both were getting through to each other in their own ways, and it was really 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 nice to see eventually see where Thorgestr is heading towards, and thinking about and caring about Senua, making sure she's all right. That whole thing, because initially neither of them wanted to keep each other safe. They wanted to just kill themselves to the point where they really want to keep each other safe, like you cannot die on me. So that is really really cool. There's one moment which is still a question for me on what really happened, is where in the game the character, you all go into this forest and you all get separated, and eventually you find each other, but Thorgestr sees something and he never really says what he saw. Is there something that you know on what Thorgestr really saw in the forest?
So in all honesty, that has always been a question mark. It was a question mark in the script. And it's deliberately done so because I questioned Laura on it. I was like, what does he see? I know what I think he saw, but it's deliberately designed to, as far as I know, to start planting the seed of doubt in the player's mind. Because the player would obviously, at that point, hopefully, they want it to be that he saw he had to fight his father, and his father didn't give him an option not to. He forced my hand, meaning he forced me to have to fight him. But it was always, they wanted the potential that he forced my hand, meaning he forced me to fight Senua. And Lara actually deliberately left that as an open question and allowed me to develop what I thought it was, and then through what I believed it to be, she helped drive the emotion, so it was not too far in either direction and could still be misinterpreted, if you know what I mean. So I'd love to be able to give you a hard and fast answer, but I think that'd be spoiling a lot of the fun.
Okay, all right, wow, that's interesting. Like a lot of people have been thinking about that. It's like some of the questions people did ask, like, what happened? What is his answer? Like, what did he see? Because everybody did get to kind of tell like what they're saying, but except Thorgestr. So that was the thing that was bugging my mind. I was like, and I did think about like the possible fact, like, okay, might have seen him to have to turn back and fight Senua, maybe in some way, being forced by his dad, and he has to do it because now he sees differently or something. So I did have that idea, but then obviously towards the end things changed. So I was like, okay, thankfully that didn't happen. But there's always a question. But you mentioned that you're still a big fan of games, and have you played the game yourself?
I don't. I don't actually own an Xbox or a PC, as you can probably tell by the quality of my camera. I don't own a PC that is powerful enough to run said game, but I have. My parents have played it.
Oh wow.
They bought it. My dad has a gaming PC, and I've seen obviously parts of it. The Ninja Theory themselves got the cast in as a little group, and we played through quite a bit of the game as well,
Oh
which was
wow.
lovely for us all to kind of play through it with each other. Um, but yes, I am a gamer. I own a PlayStation. I
Oh.
don't own an Xbox, I'm afraid. I don't know how bad that is. But
I mean, there are people out there, and it's internet. People just go in these wars of like PlayStation and then the Xboxes, and there's always this fights. But it's cool that you have a PlayStation. Is there any game that stood out to you recently that you played?
At the moment, I've got to admit, I am tied into Helldivers 2. Every time I find a moment to switch on my PlayStation, I am fighting for liberty and democracy,
Yes.
squishing bugs. That's where I'm at.
Oh my god. No, that's amazing because I'm all for democracy and sweet liberty. It's so cool to do that, to destroy all these things. So fun to play that game. And I've not gone back into it recently, but super fun.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I don't know how much you know. I won't go into too much detail, but recently they did a mission where the community got two choices, and
Yeah.
one of the choices we got a reward, and one of the choices we didn't. And I fought on the planet where we didn't get a reward, and they ended up donating a lot of money
Yeah.
to a children's charity because of it. So I feel good about myself.
You've done your part. Yeah, it's yeah, it's so it's so cool to see that moment where people did their part. It was so cool to see that from a video game, and then it all that
Yeah.
was donated to
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
to the child. It was so cool. In this community of the Helldivers is insane. I have never thought that this game would go in such levels that people would be bringing others in and being like, somehow strategizing to be like, we have to save that planet. Come on, guys! Like,
Yeah.
it's so cool to form this band together and just go destroy bugs.
Yeah, I love it. I'm never going to get tired of dropping heavy ordnance on bugs, I don't think.
It is so much fun. It's probably the best thing to do is just drop on a bug. It's perfect. I've done that to those big green monsters who just spit venom. I just dropped on them. I was like, perfect. That's it. That's what I'm doing next time onwards every time. So
Yeah, those guys are the worst. They are the worst.
yeah, the worst. Oh my goodness. But over the years, like you've done all these games, and now with Hellblade, and this, I'm pretty sure there will be more. What has it been like for you to work in video games in general?
An absolute dream come true. Honestly, it's one of those things where I always wanted to do it and never assumed that I'd be able to. And now I've started working in them. I have learned a lot more about them, and I think I don't know this. It may just have been me, but I think not many people understand the amount of work and dedication and vision that it takes for any games developer to create anything and put it out onto the market. And when you consider the actual, like, we can load up any of our consoles or our PCs, and we've got a wealth of art to be able to just delve into at any point. It's been such a humbling thing to work as part of that and learn all of the different cogs involved, and how even down to like how the fans influence games and manage to keep franchises alive, or all sorts of different things. I think I appreciate the whole industry, or at least this side of it, the video game side of it, to an even deeper level after having worked on it and seen just the amount of time and dedication that these people put in to their craft.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into all these games, and with every single person, every single department in the studio, and even with actors and everything in between, it's a lot of work. And then finally get to ship it, and people get to play it, and they enjoy it. It's a completely different feeling for you and for everybody in the studio to actually see people enjoy the product that they created for years. So it's
Yeah.
I can totally imagine how different experience it must be now that you play a game, knowing how much it goes in in the behind the scenes. And so, is there a game, is there a franchise that you would love to be a part of?
So I am a big Warhammer nerd. I have been since I was a small boy, and I would love to do anything more, because obviously we were the stunt team for the Realms of Ruin Age of Sigmar game, and that was such a treat. I'd love to do anything to do with that franchise, but quite honestly, and I literally mean this honestly, just to have the opportunity to take a character as I did with Thórgestr, again in any video game, would be an utter pleasure. I would absolutely kill to be able to continue doing this. As I said that before, like it's I'm humbled. I'm humbled that I get the opportunity to do this, and just hope that I may carry on doing it in the future.
I'm pretty sure that because of this game and you've done all these stuff before, you're gonna get more work on these old games. And I know Warhammer is such a big franchise. There's a Space Marine 2 is coming out soon, which is gonna be exciting. Yeah,
Cannot wait.
Yeah, I think I believe then you will be playing it day one. Is that a thing, or are you gonna be waiting it out?
I will probably be playing it day one. Yeah, I haven't yet pre-ordered it, but I've certainly thought about it.
I can see. Wow, that's insane. But you've been playing Warhammer since quite young. And it's this building up armies and painting and all that. What was it? What has it been for you to go into Warhammer? What excited you to jump into that? Because I know a lot of people were into D&D. Warhammer is kind of a completely different beast in itself.
Oh, I'm a huge nerd all around. I got into D&D late, but I'm in that camp as well. Honestly, for me, as a child, I think it was just, again, this huge imagination that I have, and being able to actually play out these battles in all of these different respects. I think I also when I was super young, my mum used to paint them for me because I didn't like painting them. But my mum is an incredible artist. She's incredible. And just having one of the first things she ever painted for me was a regiment of spearmen, and they were like all in line. And she painted them in the colors that are akin to our family tree, our family emblem. And then she literally put a transfer of our family emblem on the flag. And I don't know, they were like my favorite things forever.
Wow, that's so cool.
And yeah, I guess I really like the art side of it, but I also like getting out and just, socializing with my other nerdy friends and having a day where we can all just get into our heads a little bit and imagine these models waging war on our table.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, Warhammer. I unfortunately have not been into Warhammer much because I, for some weird reason, thought Warhammer as a video game was completely only strategy, top-down kind of thing all the time, and I thought that's how the game is. But now that I know that there's a lot of different aspects of it, which I really then now want to jump in, and it's really fun because now I think, especially with Henry Cavill is like a big fan of Warhammer. Has been talking about this Warhammer movie apparently coming out too. So it's really exciting that he's also kind of pushing it through. So it's really fun to see and really fun to know that Warhammer is like so up there and the games are coming out and the people are just excited for every single Warhammer game.
It's an incredibly great time to be a Warhammer nerd. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I've seen, so many stuff coming up. It's so exciting. Well, there's another thing that you mentioned was doing short movies as well. And you've done some of the horror side of short movies, which I saw one of them. And there's more coming up as well. So what has it been for you to work on these short movies? Because it's really, really cool to watch these shorter movies in small, because they're small and they're easily digestible and they're really well told.
Thank you. No, I love working on them. To be honest, the short films that I've done recently have all been with the same director. And it was a COVID thing. So he's actually the bassist of one of my favorite bands ever. And he posted that he was getting into, he's called Aaron McKenzie. He posted that he was getting into his camera work, and he already did like a lot of the music videos for a lot of the bands that I listen to. And he kind of just expressed this willingness to want to try and become a director and start to like move up in in the film world, as well as already being heavily established in the music industry. And on a whim, completely on a whim, I just shot him a message being like, hey man, like, I know you don't know me, I'm just like a nobody, but if I work in the industry myself, if you ever have a place for a ginger guy, like, let me know. I'd love to work with you. And I didn't hear anything back for a little while, but about 2 months later, I just got a message from Aaron McKenzie on my phone, and he was like, yeah, I'd love for you to come. I'm planning this short film. I'd love for you to come and do it, which was upheaval. His, again, like, to be able to tell such a short, condensed story, but in such a fantastic way is all I can really say. And to be part of those sets where not only am I working alongside like one of my idols, like I'm fanboying hard, but also get to, again, just see different genius minds at work and how they tell their stories and put those things across. And the horror aspect is always just a bit fun, isn't it? Like,
lovely.
It's yeah, when it's done well, it's always fun to be on set, and you've got other actors walking around with like half their face falling off and prosthetics and like
yeah, like I'm a big fan of horror, so I love watching all these horror shorts because they're sometimes better than a horror movie. And so I just watch all these shorts on YouTube sometimes and like, oh, this is cool, and list them out. And I did see a people which I really liked, and there's one other one that I'm looking forward to is As Above. I don't know. I don't think so. It's come out yet, but I liked the teaser of it, so I thought like that'd be fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to whenever that comes out.
Yeah, I believe that one's going to be like super short. We literally filmed it in a day.
Oh wow!
In Sheffield. Yeah, but again, it's from the mind of Aaron, and he's one of those people where he's a bit like, if I've got an idea, I don't wait for something to happen, I make it happen. So in whatever context I can do it. And in this, it was literally, we were a skeleton crew. We had himself, one person who was basically acting as a runner, a grip, lighting engineer, everything, and then another person who is his partner Susie, who was doing everything else. And we literally just, the three of us and another actress called Anna Mills, just literally pumped that out in a day. So I hope it's okay, but I have a lot of faith in Aaron.
Oh yeah, I've seen a people. I saw some of the other stuff, and yeah, I do. I'm looking forward to it. And even though it was done in one day, even though it's shorter, I think I'll really enjoy it. I just like the premise of it, so it just looks pretty exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those psychological horror ones where it's all a bit strange, but hopefully, yeah, it'll be great.
I'm pretty sure. Well, there's some fan questions that I would love to ask from some of the people who wanted to know about Thorgestr. So Ria Anastasia asked, how do you feel about the character in general throughout this game?
I feel like he is a incredibly complex character that may be heavily misunderstood, but also heavily influenced by other people and outside things that turn him into what you originally find him as. But I think, yeah, I love the fact that he's deeper than what he first appears, and that it's sort of, in a way, almost like a little comment on how you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Yeah. If you know what I mean. And I love the character for that. I love the fact that he's got such a depth to him, and he's so well written.
Yeah, I love that. So cool. Sticks of Grund, I think the name. How do you prepare for the character? Like the energy in the voice, the accent. How does the preparation go?
So the accent, I've begun by trying. I have a friend called Dean Ridge. He's another actor. He's fantastic, and he had a contact who was an Icelandic actor who very graciously spoke a scene for me so that I could sort of try and pick the accent up, and that was for my audition. And then obviously we did quite extensive, like a couple of months work with Penny Dyer, who helped us with our Icelandic accents, our traditional Icelandic accents. But in terms of preparing on set for the character, I think I use music a lot. I'm passionate about music. Sorry if you can hear the dog next door. And yeah, I guess I like to zone into sort of that specific. I find a song that maybe fits the flavor of the scene, not necessarily the character. So every day it's sort of a bit different. And I think I just spend time almost. I know the lines by this point. Like I've obviously done the legwork behind the scenes, but I spend time sort of going through the lines while being influenced by maybe that specific track.
Wow.
But really, I think all of the decisions that I make when I'm doing that get trumped by the relationship that you have with your co-actors. And sometimes they give you something that's just amazing, and it influences how you take the scene forward. So however much preparation you do, I think there's always an element always of being flexible and playing with what you're given rather than just giving what you've decided.
Yeah, that's right, and that's pretty cool. I know that some of the actors in games also have like this habit of listening to music, or maybe they have created a playlist and they listen to those music to influence the scene or for the character. Did you have a playlist, or is like something that you just searched and looked around?
I didn't have one specifically for Thorgestr, but I definitely had some go-tos in terms of like some of my favorite songs that I have a rather eclectic music taste, but generally speaking, metal was the thing that I used for Thorgestr. I'm a big metal fan, but not just the kind of wall of noise. Usually I listen to metal that's kind of very potent in its lyricism and its composure, and it's quite delicate and intricate, but obviously there's also the songs every now and again that just hit hard. And I think using those different nuances, using one of those kinds of bands' softer songs in one of the more delicate moments helped, because it was still the same band in a way that were helping me do the heavy hitting action scenes. You still heard those same voices, but you heard how they brought it back, and they'd acoustic guitar accompaniment and all of that. And you're like, okay, yeah, it helps sort of develop that narrative through. I hope that makes sense. I'm just chatting.
That completely makes sense. It does, because somehow, in some ways, the music and whatever instruments has been utilized, somehow it kind of influences, and like, okay, it just kind of connects. It's kind of hard to explain as you're trying to. It's hard to explain, but it helps, and I can totally understand that. So that's pretty cool. I love that you're a metal fan, because I love metal songs. Not the one completely going crazy and screaming, but like there's some of the softer side as well. So yeah, I listen to some of the metal songs as well. Tay asked, do you have any memorable experiences on set? I think you didn't mention it, but do you have any other memorable experiences that you can share?
I mean, the first time I met Mel was incredibly memorable, because I was absolutely scared. I was still only a stunt performer, right? And this BAFTA award-winning actress just wanders through the door. She wasn't necessarily supposed to be scheduled in on the day, but she has, such a relationship. She works at Ninja Theory pretty much exclusively, that like she just was like, oh, I wonder what's going on the stage. So she popped through. And I remember being down in the volume and just looking up and being like, oh dear, like, oh no, like how do I compose myself? What am I supposed to do? This is oh wow. And then she was just genuinely lovely. She was like one of the loveliest people ever. And I worked myself up something rotten. I was like, I don't know how to talk to her. I don't know what to say. Like, hi. But no, she's genuinely lovely. And I think that experience of there's not been a single person, and I mean this literally genuinely, there's not been a single person that hasn't been as lovely to meet in this entire project. And if I have to maybe say one that isn't related to the character itself, because obviously we did one of those earlier, it would be simply getting to meet everyone that I got to meet and getting to work beside them. I hold that so dear, and I think that's one of my best moments on set is just being there.
Wow, that's cool. I totally understand the being intimidated, being kind of like in that state, because I have that most of the time, and especially if it's like whenever I'm talking to any actor, I always have that that moment of few minutes before I'm joining the call. I'm like, oh my god, I have never talked to this person. I don't know how to convey and whatnot. So like, I can totally understand that feeling, but it's
I
pretty
get
cool.
that. I was a wreck just before we came on.
Wow, well, that makes it two of us. But I'm happy that things are going well. Every nothing probable, I think his name. How did you and Melina interpret the dynamics between Thorgestr and Senua?
Yeah, I think it was quite. How do I put this? That's a really interesting question. Wow. It almost felt very natural. It felt very. It wasn't forced at all. Like Mel knows Senua inside and out. Like that, she knows everything about that character. Like if you asked her, she probably would know what Senua would have eaten that morning. It's like she knows everything about Senua. And I think Mel's professionalism and just being able to consistently be consistent with that character helped me inform a lot of Thorgestr's responses to her. And with such a clear vision coming from one side of the room, it wasn't that she forced any of my choices, but it made my choices feel so natural and not forced at all. Obviously, sometimes, as you do, I would make a choice, and it may not necessarily have been the choice that the director wanted. And Lara may come over and have a chat with me about how we just sort of influence it to be more of a different flavor. But yeah, I think between me and Mel, it was very easy for me. She made it so easy just because she knew Senua so rigorously that, and now that I developed my character, I knew when that would be annoying me, and at other times when I'd be actually finding a little bit of respect in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we never kind of. The first day we did anything together in that respect was the first shoot that we were on set together, and it honestly just working alongside her. She's a true professional.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, it's lovely. And I know like Senua with Melina, like she has played Senua from the very first game, so she knows her inside out pretty cool. And in this game, Senua is even more. It's different in some ways, and is battling even worse situations. I feel like so. It's really cool. The amount of intense moments that Senua goes through is insane. So
Yeah.
it's really
And
lovely.
just to say to watch Mel do that on the volume as well, I had the pleasure of being called on a few of those days where she had to go and do one of those really personal, sort of deep, emotional scenes. And watching her do that is just it's inspiring. Honestly, she just focuses into the zone and just smashes out these performances. Maybe has to go for multiple takes, but none of them lose the intensity and the drive that she finds. She's amazing to watch perform, really.
That's so cool. Arrow Princess asks, were there any scenes or moments that were recorded but didn't make the cut and wished you would have seen it?
There were a few, but more from the combat side of things, I think, because the combat side is such a collaboration between, obviously, you've got the head of combat, Benoit Maison, and then his team below him, and they are kind of the bosses. But then you've got the stunt team with Nathaniel at the top, and then all of us just below him, and finding those exactly what Benoit wants and exactly how Nathaniel wants to do it means that there's an awful lot of stuff that gets made but never gets like fully approved or gets altered in some ways. And there were some really exciting moments there that I think that if they'd have put them in, it may have been a little bit extensive because it was mainly just the cutscene stuff that obviously didn't get put in. It may have felt a bit gratuitous. I think Ninja Theory cut it perfectly and chose which bits to use and which not, like with artistic precision. But I think, yeah, if anything, there were a couple of combat scenes that I remember doing and being like, wow, that was so cool. And then it didn't quite make the cut, but for an incredibly amazing reason that, again, Benoit, genius. And he'd be like, no, I don't think that's quite hitting our flavor. Let's go in this direction instead. But other than that, the cinematic shoots always seemed quite well, amazingly planned and written and directed beforehand that unfortunately for Thorgestr's actual content, I don't think there was an awful lot that was shot that wasn't used. We had to reshoot a few things, of course, as any project does, for multiple different reasons. But yeah, no, I think only from really a combat perspective, and it was just the odd kill here and there.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. The changes and ideas and what would work, what would not work. There will be some cuts in here and there. But yeah, I just want to say thank you so much, really, for taking the time to talk to me about Thorgestr for the game, and it was lovely knowing the stunt side of it as well, which is really cool, and knowing that you're also a big fan of games. So that was also a very fun thing to do. So thank you so much.
Honestly, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and thank you to anybody who tuned in to listen. Thank you.